Welcome to Sound Up, your direct connection to everything going on in the world of music. I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light. Each week, we do 2 episodes featuring the latest music news, important music topics, big interviews, and more.
On our first episode, like this one, we cover big topics, music news, and talk with some of the biggest names in music. Then on our second show, we do all of that. Plus, we invite you, the audience, to join us live and become part of the conversation here on the podcast.
If you want to voice your opinions, you can join the conversation on our next show as a Pod Squad panelist. Sign up at sounduppod.com. Also, to hear all the new music we'll talk about today, go to our Sound Up soundtrack on Spotify.
All right, let's get to it. It's time to Sound Up.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
Well, right you are. Welcome to Sound Up. I'm Mark Goodman.
And I am Alan Light.
On today's podcast, we pay tribute to Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins 2 years after his unexpected passing. Longtime friend and rock radio master Eddie Trunk is going to join us to talk about Taylor's career and his legacy. Plus, we've got music news on another possible final Foo tour, a new Prince movie, and a Tennessee law trying to limit music use of AI.
And also joining us today is director Leigh Brooks to discuss his new project, Hate to Love, Nickelback.
Oh, great.
A new Nickelback documentary that starts from the premise, here's this band
that everybody hates.
that sold tons of millions of records and everybody hates them. So we will discover how the band felt about that as a way to tell their story. And that will lead us into our big topic, our big question this week, which is bands you love to hate, but you really love. The bands that your friends give you shit for liking.
We all have them. Come on. One of the great things as I'm looking forward to speaking with the director on this, because what a great premise for a doc on a band to start with. Everybody hates this band.
Well, and you're going to do a Nickelback documentary, and fair enough. They're one of the biggest bands in the world. If you're going to do it, you kind of have to head on deal with the question.
I appreciate the honesty.
I think it's the only responsible way in. And as always, we will have our new music picks of the week, which you can find on our playlist, Sound Up Soundtrack on Spotify.
All right, so we got tons to do here. So let's take a leap into music news. Up first,
we told you a few weeks ago about the announcement of the Purple Rain Broadway musical. We then told you, I think, the next week about further rifts within the Prince estate. But at least one other project seems to have made it through, threaded the needle, made it before the doors closed. Everybody finds himself back in court, which is the announcement that Black Panther director Ryan Coogler will be producing an as-yet untitled musical film based on the song catalog of Prince. This project has been in development since 2018, will be released by Universal Pictures. We know the script was written by Brian Edward Hill, but we don't really know anything else about the film, which I've seen described as a jukebox musical film about Prince. I don't know what this means. I don't know if this means a fictionalized story using Prince songs or a retelling of the Prince story using the songs. We don't know any of that. We know that it is authorizing use of the catalog for a film project that Ryan Coogler is making. That's all we got.
And how does that intersect with the aforementioned Broadway musical jukebox?
How does it intersect with that? How does it intersect with the seemingly perpetually on hold documentary series that we've been waiting for many, many years for? Look, we've talked about this huge explosion in biopics in the music space. This doesn't seem like it's going to be that, but it's clearly, everybody's looking for new and bigger ways to exploit, and I don't mean that in a negative exploit, but to profit from these catalogs. Primary Wave is they're
the owners.
They're part owners from the half of the heirs that they were able to acquire rights. So they're a piece of all of this. They put a bunch of money down, and you're looking for what can we do with these songs from a guy who's not around anymore. I get all that. I just don't know what this is going to be.
I got a great idea. They should do a movie with all these great songs, but this guy is just coming up with them in a world where Prince never existed.
Right. Well,
it'd be such a cool thing.
The Beatles catalog, they did that. They did that Across the Universe film.
Exactly.
Which was kind of also a jukebox fictional story using Beatles songs. So there's different things you can do with this stuff.
Right. We have precedent.
So we have precedent. That doesn't mean we know where this is going to go.
So we'll see. No dates, obviously, because everything is so completely.
And saying it's been in
air.
development since 2018, by the way, whatever that means. Maybe in 2018, somebody said, hey, we should do a jukebox musical. And that's as far as they got 6 years ago. But here we are.
Also, big news. I'm chuckling because we all know. Pete Townshend recently commented on The Who's future. He suggested that they may get back out on the road for an extensive farewell tour. Have we not heard those words from Pete Townshend in the past? He said, it feels to me like there's one thing The Who can do, and that's a final tour where we play every territory in the world and then crawl off to die. His worldview is beautiful for me.
This is from, it's a quite interesting Q&A in the New York Times that ran over the weekend ahead of the opening of the Tommy musical, which is returning to Broadway.
Yes. I can't wait, by the way. We'll be talking about that next week. I'm going to the opening.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Pete, his usual acerbic self through this interview. No acknowledgement that we seem to have heard talk about Who farewell tours before.
Yeah. He says, I don't get much buzz from performing with The Who. If I'm really honest, I've been touring for the money. My idea of an ordinary lifestyle is pretty elevated. Again, honesty there. Thank you.
The beauty of Pete Townshend, he does not hold back.
Now I want a Pete Townshend cribs. I need to know why he needs the cash so bad.
And this at the same time when Daltrey has announced that he is going out doing a solo tour.
He's doing a solo tour, playing smaller theaters. And you saw he's going to be doing audience Q&As?
Yes. I don't get the format there exactly. Even in a, quote, smaller hall. So let's say he plays 3,000 or 4,000 seat venue.
He's doing like the Capitol Theater, I think, here. Yeah, those.
Yeah, Q&A. Well, I guess didn't Bruce Dickinson do something like that
too?
He
did indeed. And
yeah.
I think you write down questions. I mean, I don't think he
Submitted
calls on
advance.
people raising their hand.
You up there in the
audience.
upper balcony.
No, the guy in the black shirt. No, the other black shirt.
The other guy.
You smoking weed. Get out.
You're messing up my voice. That's Daltrey.
The eternal conflicting worldviews of the guys at the heart of the Who.
Ah, yes.
So, interesting legal news. In Nashville a couple of days ago, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signed the, stay with me here, Ensuring Likeness, Voice, and Image Security Act.
You know they worked hard on this.
That's the ELVIS Act, the Elvis Act, which prohibits the use of AI to mimic an artist's voice or likeness without their permission. So just for, there was an existing law that passed after Elvis's death that was to protect essentially image and likeness for a musician in Tennessee without his consent or permission. Now, if you're asking, why is this a state law?
Yeah.
Which is a very fair thing to ask. Right of publicity protections vary state to state in the United States, leading to a patchwork of laws that makes enforcing one's ownership over name, likeness, and voice more complicated. There's an even greater variation among right of publicity laws post-mortem. So there's a push for the music business to get a federal right of publicity. But even the David Israelite, who's the president and CEO of the National Music Publishers Association, says it doesn't have a good chance. This is his quote. Within the copyright community, we don't even agree. Guess who doesn't want a federal right of publicity? Film and TV. Guess who's even bigger than the music industry? Film and TV. So it's, I think, largely a symbolic act, and maybe has something to do with anything that's created or generated in Tennessee. I'm making this up.
Right.
But that would be the only thing that it could be. But beyond that, I think the enforceability is very limited. But at the very least, it is the first effort that we've seen of anything to try to legislate a limitation around unauthorized AI.
I'm no lawyer. It's hard to understand how this kind of legislation could be anything but national and make sense. I mean, copyright law is national. correct? I mean, publishing is national. And as they say, film and television, look, they use tons of music. That's what it's all about. Artists make their money that way these days. But they pay for it. And it doesn't matter what state the movie or TV show is shot in or the artist.
This is going at it through publicity protection and image and likeness protection. It does not use the word copyright.
Yeah.
Anywhere in these accounts, it is a different thing. The Personal Rights Protection Act of 1984 was passed to extend Elvis's publicity rights after he passed away. At the time, Tennessee did not recognize a postmortem right of publicity. So within that state, you could use Elvis for whatever the hell. And this was saying, well, no, actually, you can't do that. So this broadens what use of name, image, photograph, and voice are prohibited.
But it somehow includes AI.
But it does explicitly, I think, includes AI to use somebody's voice. That's the biggest change that's there. Again, I think this is largely a symbolic move, but it is potentially the start of broader efforts.
Let's hope so.
So we'll see what it is. So real quick, a new podcast. While we're here doing a podcast, let's mention another podcast that's coming. Courtney Love has announced an 8-part series called Courtney Loves Women, which is being produced by BBC, Radio 6 Music, and BBC Sounds. An 8-part series finding the whole singer, discussing the women who've influenced her while reflecting on aspects of her life and career. Let me just read this. Among the various events in her life she will touch upon are the time she recited Sylvia Plath poetry for a Mickey Mouse Club audition, her drug abuse struggles, her role in The People vs. Larry Flynt, her attempt to play matchmaker with Stevie Nicks and Billy Corgan, hanging out at the Playboy Mansion with Debbie Harry during a Limp Bizkit album launch party, her relationship with Kurt Cobain, and more.
Drop that in last line.
Tossed off as the last thing. So Samantha Moy of BBC Radio 6 Music says Courtney Love is an icon and a trailblazer. Her influence on music and culture over the decades is undeniable. I'm very proud she will be hosting a series of incredible shows for us starting in April.
Hey, say what you will. She's a character, and I love her.
Halfway through the series, by the way, Friday, April 12th is the 30th anniversary of Hole's Live Through This album.
Perfect.
So their timing's good.
Gee, I wonder, was that an accident? Not at all, ever. All right, so there's another podcast you're going to have to carve out some time for.
Set your podcast recorders accordingly.
This past weekend in Miami, Ultra Music was happening. It's a weekend-long event. It's been going on for years. We talk about it quite a bit at SiriusXM. We carry it live, and it is a dance music event. It's all about the DJs. However, who would you not expect to turn up at Ultra? Who would be one of the least imaginable vocalists to turn up at Ultra? That's right, Jon Bon Jovi. Jon Bon Jovi turned up for Armin van Buuren's set. Why? Armin invited Jon to Miami to make this appearance for his premiere of the remix of Bon Jovi's Keep the Faith.
So is that a Bon Jovi release, an official remix?
It's an Armin van Buuren release.
Yeah.
It's an Armin van Buuren remix of that track. And Jon is, it's Jon on the track. And he shows up with mic in hand at the event. It was, if you watch it online, he's sort of singing along. Armin clearly has tape with Jon on there. He's playing the track. And Jon just sort of like, yeah, he's just chiming in the background there. And
didn't David Lee Roth do this at a similar dance festival years ago to Jump?
Right.
With a dance mix?
Yeah.
Who dance mixed it? Do you remember?
I don't. It could be Armin van Buuren for all I know.
I was just thinking who else, and I think you're right that it was Roth who did this a couple of years ago.
Roth, I expect he could show up anywhere, literally anywhere.
True. Is this in any way tied into the Bon Jovi docuseries or any of the anniversary stuff?
Sure. You may have noticed that Jon suddenly has a higher profile than he has had for the last year plus. I spoke with Bon Jovi a year ago, January, in Miami, and we talked about, among other things, the 35th anniversary of New Jersey, which he was celebrating. But at that point, he confided in me sort of off the air that he was taking the next year to work on his voice. He was having some vocal issues, and he didn't know if he was going to be able to come out and sing and play live again. So now suddenly, high profile. Yes, it's all about the 40th anniversary of the band. The band have plans to release their first album in 4 years, Forever. That is out June the 7th. Legendary has already dropped. That dropped more than a week ago, I think 2 weeks ago. And the big series is coming up. It already premiered at South by. Thank You, Good Night, The Bon Jovi Story. And that will be out for all of us on Hulu in April. So Bon Jovi is coming back. And he's, among other things, he's got a dance mix. All right. I wonder how Eddie Trunk is going to feel about Bon Jovi having a dance mix. We'll hear about that. All right. Real quick, I thought that this was pretty fascinating, that Patty Boyd is selling her private collection, including George Harrison and Eric Clapton artifacts, a paltry $3.6 million. It does include the original oil painting that was the cover of Layla, and that was a gift from George Harrison to Patty. That painting alone sold for $2.5 million. And you may remember, I've talked about this on the air a bunch of times, that a few years ago, I got to sit down with Patty Boyd and we talked about and showed a bunch of photos. These are like family photos of her with George and with Eric and all of them together at George's estate. And there is the collection. She's a great photographer, for one thing. And to get that kind of glimpse is pretty amazing.
And I think the wild thing in this auction were some of these letters, this correspondence of Clapton sort of trying to woo her with these notes. This is a thing that is part of the story. And Eric talked about it in his memoir and she's talked about it, but to actually see and put up for sale these letters of romance. And then the letters from Harrison too, kind of acknowledging, but not really dealing with it. And like all the soap opera of it to see the immediate
I mean, we know sort of the superficial story. We know about the double album, but this is really a glimpse inside. And, you know, I think she got a little bit of heat, as did Eric, when they sort of got together. It was like, what? She breaks up with a Beatle? She breaks a Beatle's heart? It was a big deal. But now we see, you know, everybody's shared a little bit of guilt in this situation. So big stuff. She's going to auction this off and maybe start ponying up money, gather together with your friends and see what you can pony up. All right, that does it for our quick look at music news. I think we mentioned actually on our last week's show that coming up on Monday the 25th, that was the anniversary of the passing of Taylor Hawkins, Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins, in 2022. To this date, no official cause of death. He was on tour with the band in South America. It was a huge shock and really sent Dave and the band sort of spinning. You know, they were sort of out of it for a while they tried to figure out what to do next. And we wanted to talk with our friend Eddie Trunk, who I know has spent quite a bit of time with Taylor over the years. Eddie joins us. What's up, Eddie? Good to talk to you again. After,
Mark, Allen, while. How are you guys?
Good to see you, man.
Good.
Get the band back together here.
Yeah, well,
how about that?
Sorry, it's a sad occasion we got to bring you in for.
Yeah.
But with 2 years perspective, 2 years to the day perspective on Taylor's passing, has your thinking about this situation changed at all? Do you have any, like, what's the perspective as you look back on this 2 years later?
Well, I mean, I think that people were amazed at the outpouring of support and love and connection that Taylor Hawkins had to so many in the music community. I mean, it's remarkable when you think about the fact that 2 major tributes went on in incredibly short time in 2 different countries. So I think that sent a message to a lot of people just how loved of a figure that he was. And let's be honest, that's not all that common when it comes to drummers, right? I mean, they're usually with some exceptions, they're usually not, especially a drummer, let's be honest as well. Foo Fighters is Dave's band, you know, a supporting member of the band. So I think that was amazing. And I think the tributes were amazing. And look, I did know him and work with him, and he was a friend. And I think what people loved about him so much was not only his amazing ability as a player, but his spirit, the type of guy he was. He was just... That's
what I was going to talk to you about,
rock
Eddie.
and roll so much.
I've spent not nearly as much time as you, but I talked to him a bunch of times over the years, and we hung out a bit. One of the sweetest, most gentle men I've ever met, and a fan first.
Absolutely. I think, again, there's a million amazing drummers. Let's be honest. There's a million amazing musicians. I think what brought him to that level of so much love from others was exactly that, Mark. His connection to people, how outgoing he was, his love of the music. I mean, he was there are these guys that are fans first and foremost, and that's exactly what I think of with him. He was like, when we sit down and talk, we'd never talk about Foo Fighters.
Right.
We'd break down Queen or Kiss or Rush or whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
So beyond those unbelievable tribute shows that happened and everybody who showed up to, show support for this guy and show support to Dave and the band, when you think back on it, do you have a different sense of what it was that Taylor brought to that band, what it was that, as you said, that did make him stand out? As it's not often the drummer is the second guy in it's not Jagger Richards, it's not Paige Plant, it was Dave and the drummer, like, again, with some distance on it. What do you think that was all about?
Well, obviously we all know that Dave is first and foremost a drummer. So I think Dave was probably always going to gravitate once he came out front in Foo Fighters to the drummer, because that's an instrument he relates to. And I know that he drove Taylor pretty hard in terms of like what he wanted and how he wanted to play. And I used to talk to Taylor about that. It's like, Taylor's like, it's not easy being the drummer in a band where the front man is a world-class drummer, and you got to make sure you kind of keep up. It reminded me a little bit of the dynamic that Joey Kramer always had in Aerosmith, because for people that don't know, Steven Tyler was first a drummer. And if you used to go see Aerosmith play, Steven Tyler would constantly turn around to Joey Kramer and give him signals on how to keep the beat and stuff. So there was always that kind of push-pull, and I think they had that. And the other thing, for people who've seen the Foo Fighters, I mean, Dave brought Taylor out front. He let him come out and sing a song. He'd go behind the kit. It was always Dave, Taylor, Taylor, Dave out there. So I think that Dave just connected and related to him on a musical level, but also on a very personal level as well. He was his guy.
Yeah. He had some stuff going on outside the band that was doing pretty well, in fact.
Yeah, well, he had a band called Taylor Hawkins and the Coattail Riders, which was a trio. Which I actually did a special with when their last record came out from the Rainbow on my show in LA. And for years, he had a very successful cover band called Chevy Metal that was also a trio and was basically the same guys that he had in the Coattail Riders. A guy named Wiley Hodgins on bass and vocals and Brent Woods on guitar in the most recent version. And what's interesting about that is that just last week in Vegas, I saw Chevy Metal play. They are back playing again with Taylor's son, Shane, on drums and doing quite well.
Wow.
So that's continuing.
Well, his son, Shane, made a big impact at those tribute shows, right? When he came out in front of everybody in that environment and showed what kind of player he was.
I had him as odds-on favorite to get the gig in Foo Fighters. I think the only reason why he didn't is because he's still just 16. But I would not, and all respect to Josh Freese, but I would not be shocked if when this kid gets to 19, 20, assuming Foos are still going, that he kind of assumes that mantle. I think, I don't know anything inside. I'm just saying I was shocked he didn't get the gig, and the only reason why I think he didn't is because of his age. But he wants to play. He wants to follow in his dad's footsteps. He is all in.
Well, his performance, and so we're talking, he was 15 or something during the tributes? Is he 16 now? Because so he was 14. I thought he was like 15 years old during those tributes, and he was incredible.
Yeah, he might be on the cusp of 17, but he's somewhere around there. He was somewhere around 14, 15 during the tributes.
When did you hear, and how did you hear about Taylor passing, Eddie?
You know, one of my closest friends is his guitar player in both Chevy Metal and in Coattail Riders, a guy named Brent Woods.
Yeah.
And I was in Vegas preparing to do something. I was actually going to host the Sammy Hagar show in Vegas. I was at dinner and my phone rang and it was Brent. And he was super, super shaken and distraught. And he said, "Are you with anybody right now?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm with one friend at dinner." He said, "Well, don't say anything. Don't let on anything. This cannot come out yet. It's not going to come out for a little bit." But they just found Taylor dead in, it was Colombia, I believe.
Colombia.
And I just had the phone in my ear. We were in the middle of dinner and we're at an Italian restaurant in Vegas called Piero's. And I like, "What? Like, and again, this guy was in two bands with him, and he's one of my good friends. So I got up, walked away from the table, went into the lobby trying to console him a little bit. And I said, when is this going to come out? And he said, probably in the next few hours, but it's not gone public yet. He goes, I can't believe this. And that's how I first found out.
Well, that was another weird situation where it came out, but it wasn't confirmed. There was a sort of gray period too, where everybody was waiting to see if that was official. And,
right.
That tends to happen sometimes. You see with, famous people passing away, especially when they're in another country like that. Right. And you don't know if the news coming is reliable, where it's coming from, what's going on. But yeah, and that's just like everybody. I mean, the immediate reaction is what happened? And Mark, as I think you just said, we never got like an official statement, but it was kind of like, I think they kind of stayed away from really ever putting that out, but it was fairly well known that Taylor had struggled and had his demons over the years. And,
right.
And people kind of just put it together, I think, from there.
He earlier in the day complained of chest pains, and they at that point, as it headed towards it was almost showtime, as I understand it, and emergency services were called up to his hotel room. And they arrived, and they found him at that point already unresponsive. Performed CPR. So they didn't even revive him. He was declared dead at the scene. And it's, chest pain, so it sounds like a heart attack. But then, of course, what was behind that, I guess, would be the question.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, too, that shortly after his death was that people were, and this just goes to show what an impact he had on people and how connected he was with Foo Fighters. People were like, I remember writing stories and pondering whether Foo Fighters would continue.
Yeah.
And I was like, I with all respect to Taylor, I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard, because first of all, every band continues. Nobody ever ends ever anymore, even if they have no original members. But secondly, again, let's be honest, if you really know the deal, Foo Fighters is completely Dave Grohl's band. But to me, that just showed how big he loomed as a presence in Foo Fighters. But when you really know how it works, it's Dave's band. He writes the songs, he directs the whole thing. So you knew once things settled, they would indeed continue. I never had a question about that. And it was just a question of who it was going to be. And look, I think Foo Fighters handled the whole thing the best they could possibly handle it. I mean, they took the necessary downtime that I thought was appropriate. They did amazing tributes to the guy. And then when the time was right, they announced the new guy, and they're back full going again.
So given all that, I was going to ask you, as you said, Josh Freese, after speculation, Josh Freese ends up taking over the chair. What do you hear? I mean, is it because, as you said, it's so much Dave's brainchild, everything that they do? Do you hear a change in the band? Obviously, there's a shift in sort of dynamic on stage and everything else. What do you think that the impact of another drummer, and specifically Josh, moving into that slot has been for them?
I don't know Josh all that well, but he's obviously another world-class drummer. And is it going to be exactly the same? No. But if I'm being totally honest, I mean, look, people want to go hear those songs. Nobody's going to, 98% of those people are going to be like, oh, he didn't hit the hi-hat like Taylor, or he didn't play the ride cymbal in that part like Taylor. I mean, no, people are going to go there. It's their stadium level act. They're going to enjoy the show. As long as there's a really good drummer back there, it's fine. I mean, I think and you touched on it, Alan, I think where the difference may be is in the personality. I mean, Taylor was a big personality. He was, this surfer dude with the big smile back there playing. He was very animated the way he played. And again, for people who saw the Foos, Dave brought him out front. He'd come out and sing 2 songs sometimes. So he was, I don't think Josh is or will ever go to that point with Foo Fighters, because I don't even know if Dave's going to want to do that again, because it was so connected to Taylor. But I think, in Josh, he's got a super rock solid drummer who's doing a great job. But any member that gets replaced in any position of a band, it's never going to be exactly the same.
Right. Eddie, anything that you want to tell us about what you're up to? I know that you're still cranking at Sirius XM.
Yeah, doing the daily show 3 to 5 Eastern on 103 Faction Talk, and having a blast, and still out there doing tons of different events and hosting different stuff. And hopefully I'll see you again, Mark, at our yearly get-together in Cancun at the Sands.
Yes!
Always a good time.
We're moving to festival season. Are you going to be out on the circuit as usual?
Yeah, the one festival I've hosted every year since it started back in '07 is Rocklahoma, and I will be doing that again. They're going to announce the lineup on that in a couple weeks, and I just hear that thing's going to keep getting bigger than it's ever been. Actually, there's going to be some positive changes coming that are going to blow that thing up even more, and I'm back on board for that to host. And I do everything from the little things like this weekend. I'm in Wichita and Oklahoma City with Tom Kiefer, and then I'm in Oklahoma with Rocklahoma. So just lucky and happy to have these opportunities and keep getting out there and connecting with the fans and doing my thing.
I love that you mentioned the Sands, which is coming up in November. And I'm just curious, which of the two headliners, Squeeze or Adam Ant, which are you most into, Eddie?
Honestly, Mark, on both of those, I'll be there with you watching those. I'm cool with both of those.
You are?
All right. I like me some Squeeze. I got no problem there.
I think Squeeze would be okay. Your power pop side would be cool with
Absolutely. And and also Adam Ant. I mean, I'm real curious to see Adam Ant. Where you'll lose me is when you get into the R&B and hip hop stuff, and that gets too far out of my radius. But doing that event, for people that don't know about this event that Mark and I are hosts on, it's an eclectic mix of music. And I tell you, one of the things I love about it is seeing the stuff I wouldn't normally go to that has some rock sensibility to it, because I've enjoyed that. And you and I have, Mark, what did you and I watch together? I was like, are you going to tell somebody we're watching Jodeci or something together?
Exactly.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. That doesn't mean I like it, but I'm open to it.
Fair enough,
That's all we
man.
can ask.
So we will see Eddie Trunk down front for Young MC at the Sands, and Technotronic, of course, down front for that.
Eddie
as well.
Trunk can pump up the jam.
That's where you'll find me at the all-inclusive bar having a couple of drinks with some of the fans.
Eddie, it's great to talk to you again. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Guys, great to see you both. Thank you so much, and best of luck with the podcast.
All right, everybody. Eddie Trunk, many thanks. Coming up after the break, director Leigh Brooks is joining us to discuss Hate to Love Nickelback, his latest project that looks at one of rock's most popular, most loved, and most hated bands.
And that will lead into our big topic, our question for you that we want to get into later in the week, talking about bands you love to hate, but you really love. The bands that your friends give you shit for liking. Why are these bands so despised? Why are fans ashamed to say they like them? If they're selling tens of millions of records, are they really that hated?
All that plus our new music picks of the week. That's coming up right here on Sound Up.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
All right, welcome back. This is part 2 of our first show of the week, Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. And we promised you a special guest. There is a brand new documentary just out, and the director/editor, I noticed, is Leigh Brooks, joins us to talk about Hate to Love Nickelback.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome, Leigh. Leigh Brooks, director of this great new documentary about this band, Nickelback, one of the biggest selling bands ever, hugely popular, over 50 million records sold, Grammys, all kinds of insane awards. And yet, somehow you had to start with the premise that people hate this band. What did that do in terms of you being a director, and that's your starting point?
Well, it didn't start off like that. It was I flew out to film an EPK for their album Feed the Machine in 2017, and we used that as an opportunity to go, you know what, let's try and get a bit more in the can out of the band than we anticipated. So it started off a bit of behind the music kind of, standard kind of premise. And when we got the footage back, we actually covered quite a lot of topics in there, hate was something that was really brushed over at the beginning. At that point, they were right in the middle of it. They were beaten down by it. They'd had enough talking about the hate, and it was really a thorny issue for anyone to start talking about it. And we weren't really in Ben, the producer, was in the Nickelback camp because he was one of the first people to play How You Remind Me. He was the first person to play in the UK, but I wasn't in the camp. Do you know what I mean? I was just a shooter at that point. But we got on really well. And I think when we got back and showed them some of the footage that we shot, they saw that this is a little bit bigger than what they anticipated we were going to get. Then I flew back out there to get some B-roll of them on tour, to go over this, behind the albums kind of an idea. But then it just started, there was these other opportunities of going to Hannah to film them, or like they were going to go shoot a gig in Hannah. And I was like, man, that's amazing. You're going back to shoot where you come from. Going out to play a gig there, you should film that. And luckily they said, well, do you want to come out? And I was like, yeah, definitely. So then it was still a small crew. There's no big production company really on this. It was me, Ben, and my DOP Lynch. So it's really, really low key. There was no researchers, no producers, no assistants, no runners, nothing. So I think, that made the guys feel a bit more comfortable with us. The hate thing really didn't come up, really. It took us about 2 years for us to really start getting underneath the surface of that. Chad really didn't want to talk about it. He was done with it. But slowly but surely, the other guys started to kind of open up a bit. And it's quite funny. Daniel, the drummer, said to me once, I had a steady camera going up to him to get a really cool shot. And he looked round, he looked shocked. And he was like, oh, here are the guys that we pay to run away from. I was like, yeah, that's about right, man. We'd go on the payroll, but they would run away from the cameras. They're just not that, they're not that into, they don't like that side of it at all. They really don't. They really are about the music,
But it really is. I mean, the thing of, you think of Nickelback and you think of people who hate Nickelback, like,
yeah,
that at a certain point it had to be clear to you, like, look, we're going to have to take this head on. And really, it is the thing that elevates this. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in here and footage of them in the hometown and the personal stuff. But the thing that really makes this a different story than a story of a big rock band is this backlash undercurrent thing. What was it to sort of negotiate that with them and get them to see, look, if we're going to tell this story, this has to be a part of the story?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. So before we got to that point, it got to a point where I think we took the film as far as we could without really going into the hate that much. And there was another company that nearly took the film over, and I thought we'd lost it. I thought the film was going to go. Sometimes that happens in this industry. So I'd resigned myself to the fact that it was gone, and this other company would have really tried to get under the skin of it, but it wouldn't have been a Nickelback thing, So basically, it came back to us, and then I sat there and went, look, if we're going to do this, and I said this to Ben, then we've really got to go bang into the hate. And I said, I want to come off the chain with it. I want to see. I want to put in those clips that they don't want in there. I want to put in these things like the Stone Sour chanting, fans chanting "fuck Nickelback." Pardon my French.
The memes, the
memes. Yeah, oh man, that was interesting because I didn't know where we would stand with that. Like, I went on to, the first thing you do is you type in Nickelback memes, bang. It's just
oh man,
a sea of them. So it was. I have to say, it was a lot of fun getting those all out and then trying to devise a device to kind of fly through almost the sickening amount of memes coming towards you. So my VFX guy had a lot of fun doing that. I mean, you're flying into Chad's mouth and the eyeballs are going here, there and everywhere. So fair play. I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, but, they've embraced it. They really did. And I think it's the stronger for it. There are bits in there that I cringe at, on their behalf. I was watching it at the screening the other day and I was like, ooh, wincy, but great, because I think you can't tell that story without at least showing some of that.
Well, you can't. And also the tension, even within the moments where it seems like they're kind of like, look, we're the guys selling tens of millions of records. We're kind of okay with it. But when they're coming after our kids.
Brutal.
I mean, that interview with the kids sort of, saying, yeah, well, people hassle us, but we kind of learn how to shake it off. Like, that's another level.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? It was interesting because the film in the family wasn't on the cards for a long time. And actually it was in lockdown when, you know, no one really had much to do. The band, we genuinely didn't know if the band was going to continue at all. And I think that really comes through in the film. They're having this big existential crisis about being in Nickelback, right? And lockdown came, and then we were like, you know what, we really need to film. Like, can we film your mum and dad? Can we do this and can we do that? And fair play, Chad's mum and dad were absolute champs, you know, really talking about some really tricky stuff.
It's true. The familial stuff that you got into, stuff that I had never heard, was pretty fascinating.
And pretty honest.
Yeah, well, I think because I'd shot a film during this. I'd shot a film called The Sound of Scars about life of agony, which really went to town with, like, they just opened up completely. And I think when I showed that cut to Ryan, who ended up being an exec producer on it, I think he saw the merit of that, and I think it was on the back of me doing Sound of Scars that opened up the family kind of side of it, which, yeah, again, sometimes if you're getting answers from Chad, it's going to be one thing, but I think if you're getting an insight from his mum,
yeah,
you know, saying, I think there's a really honest point in there where she's like, I don't know what it is. There's a sense of loneliness about Chad. I can't put my finger on, but always that sense that he wants a bit more. And without saying too much and without being too graphic and granular and, you know, and giving blood to the people that clearly want blood off the back of this film, I don't know. I think that spoke volumes to me, and I really understood what she meant by that. Yeah, it definitely shows another side, especially during the inception of the family supporting them, you know, during the beginning when
they're all taking out loans and giving them thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. My God, you know, I would never have, if I'd have said that to my mum back then, you know, can I have $5,000? She'd have said, well, it'll be a 2-minute fad. You know, you're not going to be doing it tomorrow. You'll be in judo or doing something else tomorrow. So, yeah, fair play. You know, the belief that they had in those guys.
The other piece that maybe fans know, I didn't really know, was this sort of rapid fire series of health crises that there's, you know, the brain hemorrhage, and then Chad loses his voice, and then the drummer hand doesn't work. And then all of these are kind of happening one on top of another while they're, you know, navigating all this.
I think the interesting thing about that was I had no idea about Mike until about 3 years in. And then it was like, I think we should talk about that. We knew the Chad thing was pretty public about his voice, but not the mechanics of what that meant. You know, like you can see how Mike's like, he was afraid to ask about Chad's voice, you know, but then how amazing Chad was with Mike during that stroke scene, you know, during that stroke period where looking after him, Chad really steps up. And I think, yet again, without Chad saying much, just by Daniel even saying, you know, like, you know, I thought I was an outsider in the band. Chad first picks up the phone and says, hey, buddy, I hear you broke your dick, you know, and really, really taking the wind out of this, like really humanizing that whole thing. And I think it's, as we're all getting older, I think men really struggle, you know, with actually admitting their own mortality. And I'm all right, I'm fine. You know, I can do this, I can do. I've been like that. You know, I've quit booze during the making of this program. You know, I was one of the first times I met Chad, we went out and got absolutely annihilated. And I remember waking up one morning in his house. It was after the pool scene, and we got plastered. And I woke up going, "Good Lord, how does he do this all the time?" And I quit booze 15 months ago. You know, so it's a lot of different, you know, journeys that we've all collectively been on. But I think it does get a little bit meta Nickelback at the end. I think it does come round to these threads kind of like, you know, wrapping themselves up a bit. And I think everyone has hit a different level of where they all are in their lives and relationships. And I think that's relatable to dudes especially, and needed, because, you know, we don't have a lot of voices these days. We're not allowed one. So I think it's kind of nice on that respect that, yeah, it's not going to be a film that critics are going to go, they're going to want some kind of monster, right? They want Metallica, they want blood, they want guts and all that. I think we pushed it as far as we could with the band. And I'm really proud that we got that a different insight into the band and Chad as well.
Each member of the band, even succeeding drummers, you really delved into their lives. And it really, the end result of that was we went beyond the sort of caricature of, you know, the band we love to hate, Nickelback, and they became a band with people who had these real, genuine stories. And you've elevated them. I think the end result seems to me that you've elevated Nickelback. Is that where you were headed?
Yeah, I mean, look, we had no brief, but I was so surprised when I met them. I didn't know much about. I'm Biohazard, you know what I mean? I'm Alice in Chains. I was the Doors, all that. You know, 9 Inch Nails. I can see behind there. You know, that was my thing. You know, that was my jam. So But then when I started listening to their back catalogue, I was like, geez, man, these guys have got some rippers, man. You know, outside of the singles, they got some ripping tunes. And I was like, you know, I had no song direction. I could put in what I wanted. You know, they didn't tell me to put this, that, or the other in it. So that track selection really came from me and Ben.
Oh, man. You put the stripper songs in there, the blowjob songs.
And we know there's some bigger tunes that are more controversial in there, you know, that they sung about. But you know, fair play. At least they had a go at answering the questions about it, you know, and it was important. But yeah, again, you know, one of my favourite bits is when they're having a beer in Birmingham around a table and they start referencing Spinal Tap, which was just genius.
So, having spent this much time with these guys, this much time thinking about these guys, I mean, really, where does the hate come from? What do you think it is? Because they're huge, they were immense, they were everywhere, but there's big popular bands, there's other bands that are take over the world, send 10 million content, and there's always a degree of backlash to that. But what do you think it is that is... Yeah.
It's a number of things. I think in a nutshell, before the interweb or interland, whatever you want to call it, came along, if you had an opinion on a band, you had to write on a letter, do you remember them? Post it, an editor would read all these letters and then he would select the comments that would make it on one page in a magazine, and that was it. All of a sudden, when Nickelback really started, you know, hitting it, the internet, everyone could have an opinion online. I think if it was 6 months earlier, it would have probably been Def Leppard or Bon Jovi that got it, you know, but they came along at that right time and they were ripe for the picking, you know, formulaic tunes, as it says in the film, you know, the look of the band, everyone thought they were kind of like this homogenized commercial band, but that was their look. That was just them, you know. They didn't like Chad's hair. Chad's really outspoken. They didn't like the things he said. It's easy for him to grate people up the wrong way because he's not afraid to shout his corner. You know, all these different things just added to a pot of hate. That, you know, the sexist lyrics or whatever that, you know, ZZ Top were writing.
Right. None of these are unique.
No, not at all. None of them are. They were just at that point, I think, when it all kicked off. They paved the way for everyone else online to get hate. Influencers now, if you want to be an influencer online, you're not going to go out there. You've got to navigate that hate. If I put a post up, I've got, you know, I don't, you know, lucky I'm all right. I don't really post much, but I think anyone that wants a career online is got that duality and the polarity, which all our lives is, right? Negative, positive. You know, our jobs as humans is to kind of stay somewhere in the middle of that without getting too sucked into the positive and without getting too drawn into the negative. I think our job is to kind of stay in the middle of that and not get too, elevated by the successes or too knocked down by the lows. And I think really over the years, they've learned to really come to terms with that. And when they came to terms with it, the tide changed.
Do you think, as has happened with so many bands before this, when a documentary like this comes out and does what this one seems to do for this band, are we going to see the campaign for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame coming up shortly?
Is there a reassessment that comes with it?
Of course there is, but that comes from TikTok. You know, ironically, the thing that broke them down raised them up. So new fans discovered their music on TikTok. So the memes come up and all of a sudden it'll be a rock star. It will be, you know, songs that really didn't do great things at the, you know, in the charts are going viral on TikTok. And you know what? The kids or the people that are listening to Nickelback have no idea about the hate. Right. We have an idea about the hate. They don't care. They're a new generation and they're the ones that are really discovering them now. So they did get, they're in the Canadian
Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. You know what? Look at the staying power, man. They've been around. I've seen them get. They're one of the best. It feels like when you go and see a Nickelback gig, you're in their living room. As big as the stages are, you get your pyro. You get the most amazing visuals. Like the new tour was insane. The visuals are incredible on the tour, and they really put a show on for the fans. But you feel like you're having a drink with your buddies on stage. It's really cool.
So Leigh, before we let you out of here, tell us about the where people can see this, the distribution plan. You're 2 nights in theaters, right?
2 nights in theaters, 27th and 30th of March, worldwide cinema release. And after that, I can't possibly tell you.
March 27 and March 30th in theaters. Check local listings, as they say, and then stay tuned.
Leigh Brooks, thank you so much for joining us on Sound Up. We really appreciate you coming in, and we encourage everybody to check this film out. Check this documentary out.
Hate to Love.
Hate to Love Nickelback. Leigh Brooks, thank you so much. It is actually a fun movie to watch, I got to say.
It is.
I wound up liking the guys.
You think about them a little bit more. It's doing its job.
Yes. So we got to ask you, this is our question. We're going to discuss this on our Sound Up, Sound Off show that we're going to record on Wednesday evening, and you can be a part of that. But the big question is, what is your favorite band that you get made fun of for loving?
I do not believe in guilty pleasures. I don't believe you should feel guilty for anything you like. But what are the ones you like that you know you're going to have to defend?
What, that your friends will go, oh, you like them?
So you can email us, connect@sounduppod.com. You can also go to sounduppod.com site and weigh in one way or another there and sign up to join us for our taping on Wednesday evening. And we want to get into this very topic. 5
p.m. Eastern, and we're doing it later in the day in the hopes that more people can turn up. We've been having some really, really great turnout, and you were invited for this next one coming up on Wednesday nights. All right, before we wrap things up here, we got to give you some new music real quick. I'm going to leap in with one right away, Alan, that I know that we are in agreement. We have both been raving about this Olivia Rodrigo album, Guts, but she just dropped her new one, Guts Spilled, which is her like Olivia's version kind of
deluxe,
a thing.
The deluxe edition.
The deluxe. And in addition to 5 songs that were left off this previous record, she also at the same time dropped one new song. And that's the one I'm going to go for, even though I love every single one of those other songs. So American, her new single, I think is great. Really love that one. You're with me on that.
I'll talk Olivia when it comes around to me, but we very excitedly were passing around the news of new Olivia music on Friday, and I think we all loved all of this stuff.
You, Alan, I got to give you credit because early on you loved her right away. It took me a few listens and I was nervous about the album, and then the album turned out to be great. And then I heard, oh, there's going to be 5 new tracks. These are going to suck. They were all great. So she's turning out to be a pretty substantial artist. Really,
all the right moves.
Real quick, I'll mention, and I've never heard of this artist, but man, I love this song. I think the artist is called Bruises, really a producer DJ who has teamed up with Pale Waves for a really cool dance song called She's So Cool. And it's actually, Bruises is Amelia Hernandez, somebody who was born in Tijuana and is now a producer DJ. I'm working, as I say, with Pale Waves.
Like those Pale Waves.
Right? Also, blast from the past, Augustana has returned. Augustana with a song called Carry the World, which I was all in. I just loved them. They were one of those bands. Ooh, you like Augustana? They're so lame, but great band. So those are my picks.
I will just, while we're talking about Olivia, I will also mention, we could say all 5 of these songs. I will also mention the song Obsessed, which is a collaboration with St. Vincent and,
unbelievable.
Multiple favorites within my household, and it's also great. I don't want to double up on the Olivia too much, but have to mention that. Somebody else that I think I mentioned before, I think when we did our year-end episode to introduce this podcast, I mentioned Megan Maroney, who is a young country singer and songwriter who I think is really, really good. She has a new heartbreak ballad out called 28th of June. That's just another really, really strong song and really strong performance. Somebody else who I think is just doing really good work. She's going out. She's going to be playing in front of stadiums as part of the Kenny Chesney tour this summer. So hopefully that exposure will keep her star rising. She's certainly gotten all the new artist nominations and stuff. Want to mention a song from Khruangbin, the ever fascinating, mostly instrumental Texas funk, space, jazz trio who have somehow are now like headlining arenas. The phenomenon that Khruangbin has become is remarkable to me, since what they do is so weird and vibey and cool, and I love them.
Yeah.
But that they're as big as they are is wild. So a new song called Pon Pon that's got a little more Caribbean thing going on. The new album is coming in a couple of weeks, and just everything they do is tremendously fun and interesting and cool to listen to. So
really cool.
Psyched to have that out. And I will just mention, I'm not the biggest Pearl Jam guy, But we got another taste of the new album, a song called Running, that is just an onslaught of a song.
Mm-hmm.
This is as hard as these guys have gone in a long time. It's like 2 minutes and change of just blistering speed. They said this was going to be a big rock album, and certainly the things that we've gotten indicate that. So if you're a fan, I'm sure you know about it. But if you're kind of an on the fence fan with Andrew Watt producing, it's a little bit of a monster, this song. So those are the ones I will mention.
Roger, I know you got a couple.
Well, first I got to say, I think it was hilarious. And now I didn't think about it till just now, but that the three of us, three guys 50 and above on Friday, texting each other like, did you hear the new Olivia? What new Olivia? Where can I get it? Back and forth was hysterical. It's just funny to think of the three of us. And that's exactly what we were
high
doing.
School girls.
Yeah, it was really funny. So I have a couple quick ones to mention. First up is a band called Mets. They are a band that originated out of Ottawa, but now they're based in Toronto. I was aware of this band. I never really got into them. They have a new studio album called Up on Gravity Hill. They're kind of a punk band, but this song is more kind of punk mixed with emo. It's more of a moody thing. It's called Light Your Way Home, and it is just, I can't stop listening to it. It's a really great droning kind of track and really just hit me when I heard it this weekend. The other song, going back to Olivia Rodrigo, I cannot find much information about this artist. Her name is Sabrina Sterling. She's in her teens, in that Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift singer-songwriter vein. And she's got a song out called Bittersweet. It is a 2-minute long track that is just an acoustic, beautiful song that apparently she wrote herself. And if you like Olivia, please check this song out. It's odd to say, but she seems like a young Olivia Rodrigo to me.
We're already there.
Wow.
Which is bizarre to say that.
She's 21.
Yeah, right. And finally, we heard a new Ozzy vocal on a new track with him, Steve Stevens, and Billy Morrison called Crack Cocaine. And anytime I hear Ozzy do something these days, I'm always eager to check it out because I really feel like these last few albums he's done, working with Andrew Watt and working with Chad Smith, and he's just made some really smart musical choices. And here's another one that really just shows that uniqueness and what I really love about Ozzy's voice. He's got a voice like no one else. Like, he's one of those people, as soon as you hear it, you know that's Ozzy Osbourne.
As we wait for results, as he is a nominee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Indeed.
On my ballot, I will admit that he is one of the people I voted for. So,
all right. So that is going to wrap it up for our show this time around. You can hear all of these songs we've been talking about on our Spotify Sound Up soundtrack playlist. And you can go to www.sounduppod.com to find out how you can be a part of our live Sound Up, Sound Off podcast taping and become part of the Sound Up Pod Squad. Email us at connect@sounduppod.com.
And remember, you can email us words, you can email us audio. We love to play voice messages from you guys, which you can send to that same address, connect@sounduppod.com. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you listen to Sound Up on. And we will see you next time right here on Sound Up.
Bye, y'all.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger Coletti, and distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. Get Sound Up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, email us at connect@sounduppod.com. We'll see you next time right here on Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light.